Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I am Bryson Carver, and listen, despite the, to put it mildly, warm temperatures over the weekend across the country, Tennessee, my home state of Tennessee, is certainly no exception. I am in a great mood today for a number of reasons. Number one, we got a great show. We're going to talk about Mike McCarthy, who's reportedly fed up with Jerry Jones. More on that in about 12 minutes or so. Going to discuss Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark. There's a Rookie of the Year discussion. Finally, thank you, God. We are talking about these two players in the context of basketball and not culture wars fueled by bad actors on the internet. I'm going to talk about that. Also, I'm going to discuss my man Kenny Atkinson, assistant coach of the Warriors, hired by a team I just love just so much. The Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't love them that much, but talk about that later towards the end of the show, and also discuss a number of other things in the world of sports. But listen, despite the very warm temperatures over the weekend across the country, I'm in a fantastic mood. The Red Sox just took 2 of 3 off the Cincinnati Reds. We are on a roll. We're in the wild card picture in the loaded American League. I feel good about that. Offense has awakened. Jaron Duran is an all-star. Thank you very much. That needs to happen. So I've got that. I'm not even a hockey fan, but the Edmonton Oilers may come back from 3-0, which to my knowledge, I don't think has ever been done in the history of the Stanley Cup Finals against the Florida Panthers. That's tonight. Cannot wait to watch that. Not even a hockey fan, but come on. It's sports history. It's Game 7. I'm going to watch it. But most importantly, and this is something I didn't think I was going to say on this show for a while, then we'll get into JJ Redick, but I just have to say that tonight, on this very night, June 24th, 2024, my Tennessee Volunteers can win a national championship in the sport, the great sport of baseball, against Texas A&M. We lost game 1. Texas A&M had a big third or fourth inning. I think it was a fourth inning where they blew the game open. It won in dominant fashion. Yesterday was a pitcher's duel, some timely home runs in later innings by Tennessee, in particular from my man Cal Stark, the catcher, who was catching hell from Tennessee fans, including my dad. Shout out, Dad. But Cal Stark came up big, especially with the insurance runs at the end. So game 3, Tennessee, Texas A&M, national championship will be decided. Let's go Vols, baby. Let's get a natty. Anywho's it. Y'all don't care about that. We'll celebrate on Wednesday's show with our draft topics and whatnot, but we'll have a nice Tennessee-themed celebration on Wednesday's show once my Vols come away with this national title. Shout out to Tony V as well, doing a great job coaching this group. So let's talk about JJ Redick. But first, didn't do a show Friday. So in between last Wednesday's show and today, the Los Angeles Lakers found their 29th head coach in franchise history. It is JJ Redick. This has been sort of expected, although we had a little bumps in the road as it pertains to the Dan Hurley sort of courtship by Rob Pelinka, and on the other side with Dan Hurley and Woj potentially. So you had that, Dan Hurley not getting the Lakers job, getting an extension at UConn. There was rumblings about a James Borrego potentially. There was, after Monty Williams was fired by the Pistons, hey, will JJ Redick take the Pistons job? Ultimately on Thursday afternoon, it was finalized. JJ Redick will become the new head coach of the Purple and Gold of the Los Angeles Lakers. So before I even get into the fit, I do want to say this, that I do appreciate, you know what, let me set this up the way it should be set up. I watched JJ's press conference today, or at least a big chunk of it, the first half of it or so, first 75%, 50 to 75%-ish of JJ Redick's press conference with Rob Pelinka in LA today, his introductory press conference. Wow. Listen, I've always been a JJ Redick fan. I think he is as brilliant as they come when it comes to breaking down the game, when it comes to even just content creation, his interview skills, the whole bit. And it's those reasons I think, I'll get into this in just a second, I think he will make an excellent head coach in the National Basketball Association. So what I saw today was, in one word, mind-boggling, but another word, not that, or 2 words rather, 3 actually, not that surprising, because JJ Redick is a Duke-educated dude. He's a very smart guy. And so I did appreciate that for all those who was like, hey, JJ's going to continue this podcast with LeBron. Mind the games. You got to keep doing old man the 3. Like, guys, he's a head coach in the NBA now. He's got bigger fish to fry. By the way, head coach for the most famous team in the NBA. So let's that notion of JJ was going to continue content creation. Let's put that to the side for the foreseeable future. And JJ dispelled that quickly during his press conference today. Now, when it comes to his fit with the Lakers, how it work, how it will play itself out, here's my thoughts on this. So I'm about to say something, and initially it's not going to make any sense at all, but as I go into detail, it will. I think JJ Redick is going to be... Listen, the Pat Riley thing is a bit much. Pat Riley is one of the greatest coaches ever. Like, I think it's a little unfair to JJ to compare him to one of the GOATs, a guy who's coached the Showtime Lakers dynasty and coached the Heat to a title in 2006. Like, let's slow down on that. I think JJ Redick is going to be a freaking brilliant head coach in the NBA. Brilliant. He is, by default, an upgrade over Darvin Ham. The Darvin Ham defenders, I've talked ad nauseum. Barry Grant Jr., big Lakers fan from the All Even podcast, has been on this show. We've discussed Darvin Ham. We're both in agreement. I think a lot of Lakers fans, and I'm not one of them, by the way, but a lot of Lakers fans are in agreement. Guy was in over his head. It seemed like a nice guy. I don't have anything against Darvin Ham personally, but didn't connect with the players. Not the greatest basketball IQ. Didn't have a feel for the game. Just was, again, the simplest way to put it is he was just in over his head. The moment was too big for him. The job was too big for him. That's why he's back in Milwaukee now with Doc Rivers. So almost by default, JJ is better than Darvin Ham, at least in my estimation. When you combine, and this to me is where I think JJ is going to excel. Yes, his basketball IQ is high, but there's a lot of guys who could know the game, could drop any play in the book that will work to perfection. But I will go to what Steve Kerr, who took this saying from Steve Kerr, got the greatest coaching education a human in basketball could have ever gotten. He played under Phil Jackson in the second half of the Bulls dynasty in the 90s, and he played under Greg Popovich in the first part of the Spurs dynasty in the early 2000s. Like, the guy was, maybe the two greatest head coaches ever. And Steve Kerr said this, I'm almost certain he took it from Greg Popovich, that in the NBA, it's very different than the NFL and Major League Baseball. In the NBA, 10% of it is X's and O's. Like, these guys know how to play the game by and large. These are smart players. 90% of it is relating to players, connecting with players, having a pulse on the locker room. That's not to say it's not important in other sports, but guys can love their coach in football, but he has no feel for the game, isn't terribly creative. Like, we've seen that throughout the NFL. You've got to be able to have a good pulse in that locker room. And when you go through adversity, through controversy, Steve Kerr is a prime example of it. The Warriors have been through plenty of controversy, a lot of it being with Draymond Green. And in 10 years, not once has Steve Kerr lost the respect and the command of the Golden State Warriors locker room. That's a credit to how great of a coach he is. I think he's one of the three best in the NBA. I think he's one of the best. I'm not saying JJ's going to be one of the best, one of the three best. That, I think, is where he will excel. So combined with his basketball IQ, combined with the fact that I think we know he's got a great relationship with LeBron. Now, the relationship, podcast host to podcast host, as opposed to head coach player, it's a different relationship, but these guys know each other. These guys respect each other, and that's going to work. Here's what I'm worried about. Let's go back to my first statement. I think JJ is going to be a great coach. Great coach. No matter how long he lasts with the Lakers, elsewhere, whatever the case may be, he's going to be a great coach in the NBA for the two reasons I just listed. The question is, will the Los Angeles Lakers allow that to be elongated, extended, whatever word you want to use, long term? And my answer to that is absolutely not. Rob Pelinka is still the general manager of the Los Angeles Lakers, last I checked. Jeannie Buss is still the owner of the Los Angeles Lakers organization, if I last checked and remember correctly. The Rambis couple, Kurt and Linda, they're still in the positions of decision-making with the Los Angeles Lakers organization. We can put up the list. I've done this multiple times. Certainly today feels like a good day to put it up there. List of Lakers head coaches since Phil Jackson, and all of or at least after the first two, Mike Brown, Mike D'Antoni, have been hired post Dr. Jerry Buss's passing. You got Mike Brown, Mike D'Antoni, Byron Scott, Luke Walton, Frank Vogel, Darvin Ham. Now, I think Mike Brown's an excellent coach. He's done a really good job with the Sacramento Kings. Mike D'Antoni, for his, let's just say, defensive liability as a head coach, is a really good offensive coach and be able to put players in positions to succeed. There's been a lot of players who've had their best offensive years under Mike D'Antoni. Byron Scott was a disaster. Luke Walton wasn't quite that, but he did not work. Frank Vogel's a great defensive coach, but doesn't have a good feel for offense, doesn't have the best feel for lineups late games. That's just not his MO. He's not a bad coach. I think he was scapegoated 2 years ago badly by the Lakers front office because of the Westbrook experiment. Nonetheless, and Darvin Ham, the record's not bad, 90-74, 2 playoff appearances. But as I talked about earlier, you ask any Laker player behind closed doors, the guy was in over his head. So those first two, Mike Brown, Mike D'Antoni, I mean, by and large, baseline, good coaches. I think Mike Brown's a really good coach. Not great, but really good. The rest of them have been abject failures. You say, Bryson, how does that relate? How does that relate to JJ Redick's ability to succeed? You think he's going to be good? I do think he's going to be good. Here's also where the Lakers fail and are poor at. Roster construction. It's kind of a thing they struggle with since the passing of Dr. Jerry Buss. You remember some of those Lakers teams? End of Kobe Bryant's career after Kobe retired prior to LeBron James arriving. Did you know the Lakers, albeit Kobe Bryant at the end of his career, but Kobe was still a good player, an inefficient 17 points per game, but 17 points per game in year 20. He was not, we forget what a year 20 player is supposed to look like. By the way, LeBron's playing. Kobe in year 20 actually had one of the best year 20 seasons ever, which isn't saying much given LeBron, but still, follow me. Do you know the Lakers are the second worst record in basketball that year? Had the number 2 pick in the draft, took Brandon Ingram over Jaylen Brown. Do you know the next year after that? 2017. They had a bottom 5 record in the NBA once again. They had the second pick in the draft. They took Lonzo Ball over Jason Tatum. Did you know the Los Angeles Lakers, the first season LeBron James was there, failed to make the playoffs in the Western Conference, in which the Los Angeles Clippers, whose best player was either Danilo Gallinari or Lou Williams, who came off the bench. That team made the playoffs of the Lakers in LeBron's. Now, LeBron did get injured, but he comes back and it never really materializes. Well, they got Anthony Davis. How do you think they got Anthony Davis? You think AD is going to give the okay to go to LA if LeBron James isn't there? Speaking of LeBron, it should be noted, LeBron's been a Laker for 6 years, going on potentially 7. And the way JJ was talking, LeBron's staying LA. Like I have been hoping, crossing my fingers, waiting. Maybe LeBron goes to the Warriors. It's not going to happen. I have pretty much given up on that possibility. LeBron's been the Lakers 6 years. A very strong argument can be made, I would make it, that they were really only contenders, true contenders, for 2 of them. The second year in which they won the championship, and even prior to the bubble and COVID shutting everything down, Lakers had the best record in the West. They were absolutely a title contender. LeBron maybe could have won MVP that year. The next year, LeBron turns his ankle, AD gets hurt. Okay, it's a weird season, but the team you lost to did end up going to the finals, so it's not like you lost to a bad team via the injuries. The next year, when it comes to roster construction, again, you move on from KCP and Kyle Kuzma to get Russell Westbrook, who I said at the time, check the tape, was a horrible move. Abject failure. And it presented itself just as that. Well, Bryson, were they not contenders in 2023? When they moved Westbrook, moved Patrick Beverley, moved some of these pieces that really didn't fit that well, brought in guys, Dennis Schroeder was already with the team that year, but brought in guys like Rui Hachimura, brought in some nice D'Angelo Russell, some nice ancillary pieces around LeBron AD. Were they not contenders then? Yeah, until they ran to Denver, and then they got swept. Well, the games were close. Nobody cares about that. Were the Nets contenders when they got swept by Boston and all those games were close 2 years ago? So I don't want to hear that. And then last year, ran to the same Denver Nuggets team, and Denver was obviously better, outplayed them in game 1 throughout most stretches of that game, made the comeback in game 2, outplayed them in game 3. Lakers got their pity game in game 4, and Jamal Murray shut the door in game 5. You're telling me a Lakers team that has won, I want to repeat that, won 50-win season in the last 12 years is all of a sudden going to be a threat in the Western Conference? As much as I love LeBron James, he's going to be 40 years old in 6 months. As much as I think Anthony Davis really did wonders for his reputation when it comes to staying healthy over the last couple of years, Anthony Davis is into his 30s now. Like he's not going to get any healthier. as time goes on. By the time LeBron James is done, which I estimate to be about 2 years or so, what's Anthony Davis going to be by that point? So, and again, the Lakers, I've talked about before, the Lakers actually draft relatively well. Now, again, they should have drafted Jaylen Brown in 16, Tatum in 17. They botched some draft picks as it pertains to decisions, but they haven't taken some bad players. Kuzma's a good player. Josh Hart, Lonzo Ball prior to the injuries was a good player. Brandon Ingram, same thing. They just don't develop them at all. Julius Randle has his best years away from the Lakers. The same can be said about Hart, Ball, Ingram. The list goes on. They don't develop talent well. They don't draft particularly well. And let's be honest, post LeBron James, is that going to be a big-time free agent destination the way it was in years past? No, because Dr. Jerry Bust and Jerry West, God rest both of their souls, are no longer with us, and of course no longer with the Lakers organization. I think JJ is going to do as good of a job as a person can humanly do given the circumstances in what is a disastrous front office. But don't kid yourself. They've had pretty good coaches in the past, even post Phil Jackson. Mike Brown's a good coach. D'Antoni, for his defensive flaws, is a good coach, coach of the year guy. The inability for the front office to put the requisite talent around LeBron James to really not have more than 2 deep playoff runs, and I would argue only one of those years they were true, legitimate contenders start to finish, goes to show you there's a hard cap on how far this thing can go. Now, whether his time as a head coach ends in LA or elsewhere, JJ is going to be an excellent coach. I truly believe that. But is Minnesota getting worse? Is Oklahoma City getting worse? Is the Denver Nuggets going to stop owning the Lakers the way they have for the last 2 years? Sure, the Lakers got better. They didn't go from gentlemen swept in the first round to conference finals better. And that, to me, is the big difference between me and those who believe that this is a franchise-altering decision. JJ's an excellent coach. I think he will be at the very least. But the Lakers front office will halt him and halt themselves from long-term success. Check some comments here. Patrick Brown, happy Monday. It's very hot. Oh, you don't say. My St. Louis Cardinals bats are heating up as well. Only 5 games back. I can't talk today. From first place, Milwaukee. Where are the Cardinals? Listen, I was talking to my buddy Alfred today. Shout out Alfred Parsar Jr., who creates a lot of our graphics here at the Grid Network and on this show. I saw Alfred earlier today, and he was like, "Hey, the Mets are heating up." I'm like, yeah, it's not that hard to heat up in the National League when you look at the wild card picture. I mean, you got. Let's see, what do we got in the National League? Where are the Cardinals at right now? Cardinals are firmly in the second wild card spot. I shouldn't say firmly. They're 1 game up on the Padres, but you got the Padres at 500, Nats, Diamondbacks, Mets, Pirates, Cubs, Reds, and Giants, all in the wild card, not in the National League, all under 500. So we'll see what the Cardinals do. I respect that organization as much as any in baseball, but let's not go too far. He says we're second in the Central as well. Yeah. Let's see. Patrick, JJ Redick is for the spot. JJ is Redick for the spotlight in Los Angeles. I can't wait to see a vastly improved coaching status in 2025. Lake Show, let's go. He says Lakers playoff run in 2023 wasn't smoked ham, which is what he calls Darvin Ham, smoked ham. It was the players who spearheaded that turnaround. It was the players, and it was a rare good moment for Rob Pelinka when it comes to making the trades, but also Rob was who made the Westbrook trade to even put them in that hole. That's another discussion for another day. John says he says JJ's 2 years and done. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. And to me, John, as far as how I see this playing out, I don't think that has anything to do with JJ. I think this has to do with the fact that people say, oh, LeBron's the coach killer. Well, Kobe had 1 fewer head coach than LeBron James has had in his career. So putting that aside, this is a franchise that themselves has kind of been coach killers over the years, especially since Dr. Jerry Buss's passing. So again, I think the Lakers are going to assume LeBron comes back. And the way JJ was talking in that press conference, LeBron's back. Like that seems to be a formality at this point. Is LeBron's going to be really good again, because that's who he is. 80, assuming he's healthy, knock on wood. He's been healthy the last 2 years, so we'll see if he's able to repeat that a third year in a row. Anthony Davis is going to be a defensive monster. Should have been defensive player of the year this year, although I could argue Wemby had a better argument potentially. If we're just going to go on block shots, then Wemby should have been in over Gobert. Point of that is, Those two guys would be great. But you compare them to the just to Denver. Yeah, last year's champion, but the Denver Nuggets were, after all, the team that lost to a team that lost to a team that lost to the champions. So for what that's worth. And the Lakers, what is it, 12 of 13 they've lost against Denver? And that's just going to flip? Come on now. And then also, you compare them to Boston. And Boston is the new NBA champions. The thing that the Celtics have, and if you look, and then I'll move on to Mike McCarthy, but if you look at recent NBA champions, I was thinking about this today. You know what they all have in common? Let's just put their superstar player to the side. The last few champions, all of them have at least one specialist. Bryson, what do you mean by that? This year's Celtics, you could argue they have a lot of specialists. I'd argue Jrue Holiday is the specialist. Yeah, he's a good offensive player, can have B+, A- nights, but you know what he is? He's a specialist in the fact that he's the best defender in the last decade in the NBA under 6'5". He will lock the other team's point guard down. If he doesn't lock him down, it is going to be all they can get. They're going to get all they can handle. When they want to get their shots, set up other teammates in good position to get good looks, Jrue Holiday's a specialist. Last year's Denver Nuggets, Aaron Gordon's a specialist. Great wing defender and a great lob threat. He's an A+ at both of those things. Not an A+ player, but at those things, Aaron Gordon, A+. Golden State Warriors 2 years ago. Draymond Green is a specialist in the fact that he's a B+ at literally everything, except for scoring. He's more like a C. But Draymond, good rebounder, really good passer. I'd say he's an A- passer, tremendous basketball IQ, A+ defender, and A+ offensive catalyst when it comes to getting the Splash Brothers good looks. You think about the Bucks, again, they themselves also had Jrue Holiday in 2021. So if you look at the last 3, 4, 5, 6 champions, they have specialists. Who's the Lakers specialist? Minus their other their two superstar players. Is it Austin Reeves? Really? He's a good player. He can score. Yeah, I remember he had one game against Milwaukee where he took over a game that LeBron missed. He's a good player who's on the Boston Celtics would be like the 6th or 7th best player, if we're being honest. I mean, I'd take the entire Celtics starting 5 over Austin Reeves and Al Horford. I'd probably take Austin Reeves or Al Horford at this point, but it's not a slam dunk. And listen, I've always been a Rui Hachimura fan, and JJ Redick spoke very highly of Rui during the press conference. And I think Rui will be better because of JJ, but what is he great at? That's what the Lakers are missing. I don't anticipate they'll add that in free agency. They can try Chris Paul. I think it would maybe work, but you could say Chris Paul's a specialist in the sense that assist-to-turnover ratio is off the charts. He gets teams in and out of sets, but my worry about that is how does LeBron play off the ball? Like that's to me the biggest weakness in LeBron James's career, in his game during his career for 21 years. He's not great playing off the ball. That's why the fit with him and Dwayne Wade worked, got 2 championships. It worked quite well, but it didn't feel it didn't fit as well as maybe some had thought it would after the decision in 2010. So that's my thoughts on that. So we talked about the most famous basketball organization. Let's go to the most famous football organization, although these days the Kansas City Chiefs are giving them a run for their money. Travis Kelce at the Eras Tour concert in London over the weekend. You got Mahomes and the Chiefs getting rings. I mean, life is good if you're a Kansas City Chiefs player, coach, or fan. But it is America's team. And the reason they're America's team is you either love them or you hate them. There's not really an in-between. The Dallas Cowboys. Let's talk about them. Tyler Dunn, who's been covering the NFL for some time on the Go Long website, reported yesterday, and the title of the article is magnificent. And Tyler Dunn is very important. If I can preface that and go into that later in this segment. Tyler Dunn's article is called, and I quote, "What in the hell are the Dallas Cowboys doing?" He goes on to talk about, in this article, he's talking about Mike McCarthy, and McCarthy is important as it relates to Tyler Dunn in just a moment. This is a quote from his article. Quote, talking about McCarthy, "He's doing the best that he can." An ex-Cowboys personnel man recently said, "Some of the people I've talked to have said that he's getting a little fed up. He's getting fed up with it a little bit." Talking about Jerry Jones. And as it pertains to him undermining Mike McCarthy. So, first of all, this says people like, oh, well, we don't know if we do. We do know that this is legit because Tyler Dunn has been covering the NFL for some time. He covered Mike McCarthy in Green Bay as well. So there's clearly if not a relationship between Tyler Dunn and McCarthy, which I believe there to be, there's certainly a relationship between Tyler Dunn and a mutual person who knows Tyler Dunn and Mike McCarthy. So I think this report has plenty of credibility behind it. And it's one of the least shocking things I've ever read in my life as it relates to the Dallas Cowboys. Mike McCarthy is, quote, fed up with Jerry Jones undermining him. So oftentimes in life, our life experiences, not oftentimes, I think this is the case with everybody. Our life experiences shape how we view things, how we view the world, how we view people. Just how it works. Like we don't know anything other than what we know in our personal life. Now, it's always great to meet new people, to sort of branch out with different interests and being able to read a lot. Those are great things. But as it pertains to just your life individually, you know what you know. I want you to think about Mike McCarthy for a second. Because Mike McCarthy is a guy, if you look back on his coaching journey to this point with the Dallas Cowboys, because obviously coaching Green Bay for a while, we'll get to that in just a second. He's in Dallas right now. Mike McCarthy was the quarterback's coach in Kansas City, a Kansas City Chiefs team that was throughout the 90s. That was at the end of Joe Montana's run. I don't think Montana was there at the time McCarthy was there. So again, relationship with higher ups in Kansas City. That's been a well-run organization. Maybe the Chiefs may have won a half century between Super Bowl 4 and Super Bowl 54 without winning a title. Kansas City's always, by and large, been a well-run operation they've just had some really poor luck in the playoffs prior to Mahomes. Then he goes to he was with the Packers as a quarterback coach, went to the Saints as the offensive coordinator, went to San Francisco for a year as the offensive coordinator. Then went to Green Bay, where he coached from 2006 to 2018 when he was fired midseason. Think about Mike McCarthy's head coaching experience. Coached in Green Bay for, in essence, 12 years. Coached two of the greatest quarterbacks ever, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. But even those two greats aside, if there's one thing that we know about the Green Bay Packers, and it is in large part by virtue of them being in the smallest town by far in the NFL, Green Bay, Wisconsin, that is and this isn't arguable because of how well run they've been over the years, a football first operation. Like that's why I think Green Bay over time got irritated with Favre. Listen, any organization would, but a Green Bay, a Kansas City, a Pittsburgh, a well-run franchise, a San Francisco, a well-run franchise would get a little irritated with Brett Favre. I'm retiring. I'm unretiring. Maybe I'm done. Which is why they were like, okay, screw it with Brett. We've got this young guy in Aaron Rodgers. Here we go. And you saw how Aaron Rodgers was until he got to the end of his time in Green Bay. 90% of retirement, ayahuasca retreats and taking shots at coaches and players, and particularly Brian Gutekunst, the GM, president of football operations of that organization. And it's like, this young kid, Jordan Love, we drafted the first round. This is not about what Brett was complaining about late in his career. What Aaron was complaining about late in his career has absolutely nothing to do with football. Let's go with the young guy. We are football first, winning games first operation. Mike McCarthy was a part of that for 12 years. He's going into his 5th season as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. And he has to be thinking by this point, okay, so have we been uber successful in my time in Dallas? Obviously not. We've won one playoff game in the 4 years since I've been here. But it's my argument I always make when certainly quarterbacks, Romo and Dak, but to a degree coaches, McCarthy, Jason Garrett, we can move on back, that there's this is going to be 29 years this year, because newsflash, Dallas Cowboys aren't winning Super Bowl 50. This is Super Bowl 59, I think. Super Bowl 59. This will be 29 years. We've had, who the Cowboys had since their last Super Bowl. Chan Gailey, Dave Campo, Bill Parcells, Wade Phillips, Jason Garrett, Mike McCarthy. The quarterbacks in that span Quincy Carter, Anthony Wright, Ryan Leaf, Clint Storner, Chad Hutchinson, Vinny Testaverde, Drew Henson, Drew Bledsoe, Tony Romo. You had, I think you had John Kitna at one point. You had some Brandon Whedon, some Matt Castle, some Kellen Moores in that mix as well, some Kyle Orton action. Then he went on to Dak. You had Andy Dalton. You had a number of Dallas quarterbacks in that span. In particular, though, Romo and Dak have been the cornerstones of the franchise post-Aikman. The 6 head coaches since your last Super Bowl title. One common denominator, his name is Gerald Wayne Jones. And I'm not in the minority of saying this, but I think I've been one of the loudest voices on it, that the Dallas Cowboys do not get the credit that they rightfully deserve as being one of the poorest run operations in the National Football League when it comes to football decisions. When it comes to business, I can argue it can be made they're the best. I mean, if you look worldwide, sports is one of the best. Listen, there's a lot of investments that billionaires can make. And there's most of them are risky. I mean, NFTs, crypto, that was risky. And then by and large, FTX in particular, that was a mess. That thing fell by the wayside. Remember Nikki Glazer made the joke at the Tom Brady roast? That was a good one. It didn't work. The safest bet a billionaire can make in their lifetime is in a professional sports team. If you buy the Denver Broncos, what are they going to leave Denver? They're going to be there forever. So all those organizations worldwide, and it's the Dallas Cowboys who are, as we've said often, the most valuable franchise in the world. They dominate ratings. The Thanksgiving Day game, when they beat up on a bad divisional opponent, they're going to do it to the Giants this year. They did it at Washington a year ago, did it to the Giants the year before that. That's just kind of what they do. Thanksgiving game, the Sunday night football games, the Monday night showdowns against real legitimate Super Bowl contenders. Their playoff games get wild numbers, some as high as the AFC and NFC title games at points. But the one thing Jerry Jones fears, I shouldn't say the one thing, the major thing that Jerry Jones fears more than anything, far more than losing a playoff game at home as a 2 seed to 7 seed Green Bay, youngest playoff team in a half century. The one thing Jerry Jones is afraid of is for the Dallas Cowboys to not be important. And by and large, that's really never been the case, and that's to the credit of the Jones family. They are exceptional marketers. Exceptional. They should teach a class on it, for crying out loud. But when it comes to football decisions, you say, well, how does this relate to Mike McCarthy? It's exactly how it relates to Mike McCarthy. So his 3 years in Dallas, Kellen Moore was the offensive coordinator. Now, I've been very critical of Kellen Moore over the years. I think last year in LA kind of proved me right in a sense. I think this year in Philadelphia is going to further validate that the fact that I think Kellen Moore is, we look at him as, former quarterback, young. That automatically means he's good. Not necessarily. The guy has an unhealthy obsession with curl routes, running the ball when you don't need to run the ball, passing the ball when you don't need to pass the ball. His situational awareness is lacking. So the Cowboys moved off him after the 2022 season. Mike McCarthy said, I got this. And his impact, while I've been very critical of McCarthy for his inability to embrace analytics, his almost adverse sort of mentality to running the football, one thing can't be denied. Dak Prescott's a better quarterback with Mike McCarthy than he is without Mike McCarthy. We can show you the numbers. They're quite staggering. Here's Dak. His season averages between it's 2016 to 2022. 24 touchdowns, 9 picks, threw for an average about 3,500 yards per season, 66% completion, 97 pass rating. Those are good numbers. Pass yards per game, pass yards per season isn't great, but by and large, those are good numbers. With McCarthy, this is what he did the one season with McCarthy. Oh boy, that's pretty good. 36 touchdowns, which led the league. 9 picks, which I believe was second to C.J. Stroud in terms of touchdown to interception ratio. 4,500 yards passing, 69.5, darn near 70% completion percentage, and a passer rating of 105.9. In other words, Dak Prescott was an elite quarterback with Mike McCarthy calling the plays. Now, is McCarthy perfect? No, he is not. Did I call for McCarthy to be fired after the Green Bay Packers playoff loss? Yes, I did. Because I think sort of going back to what I was talking about with JJ Redick, where having a pulse on the locker room and connecting with players is crazy important in the NBA. It's not as important in the NFL, but it does matter. And the fact of the matter is the Dallas Cowboys were unprepared to play that football game against Green Bay at home, by the way, in that wild card playoff contest. But if you think about it, Mike McCarthy was like, hey, we got some momentum. We can build off of this. And wait a second. Wait, CeeDee Lamb's in the last year of his contract, and you're not paying Micah Parsons. And my new defensive coordinator, he's on a 1-year contract, and I'm on a 1-year contract, and Dak Prescott's in the last year of his contract. Oh, and by the way, and this is not unique to me if I'm Mike McCarthy in this analogy, but if you look at the other coaches prior to my arrival here in Dallas in 2020, the media is not waiting for Dak. I mean, they are to a degree waiting for Dak when coming off of a big win or a big loss. They're not really waiting for me. Questioning a coaching decision, a fourth down call, a situational snafu. They're waiting for the owner. You ever seen those pictures of the Cowboys locker room after a game, particularly after a playoff loss? You ever seen the press around Jerry Jones, and it looks like he's the darn president of the United States? Jerry Jones views himself in, let me rephrase this. Jerry Jones has a view of himself as it pertains to his football input that is higher than everybody else's viewpoint of his football input or football IQ, whatever the case may be. So if you are a Mike McCarthy who got 12 years in Green Bay where it was football, nothing but football. By the way, the Packers are one of the biggest brands in sports. If you said, Bryson, name the 5 most valuable, or not valuable in terms of money, but in terms of importance, if you had to take 5 name brand NFL franchises, the Green Bay Packers are undoubtedly in that 5. Obviously, the Cowboys are in it. The Steelers are in it. The Niners are in it. At this point, the Kansas City Chiefs are probably in it. The Ravens could make a case. They're one of the newer franchises. Obviously, they can make a case, though. But the Packers are in that discussion, and it was about football. We didn't care to bring in a free agent. We didn't care to be aggressive in the trade market because it was about football, and it was about nothing but football and winning football games. In Dallas, that's not the case. Frankly, it hasn't been the case since Jerry Jones told Jimmy Johnson to shove it after back-to-back titles. You think Clark Hunt's firing Andy Reid after the second straight Kansas City title? No, because Clark Hunt is not an egomaniac. Most of these owners, and a lot of them are, that's why some of these franchises like the Jets and the Panthers aren't well run. But we talk about the Dallas Cowboys year in and year out under the same context that we talk about franchises that are really in contention, regardless of quarterback play, regardless of coaches. If you're crying out loud, the Pittsburgh Steelers had 3 bona fide backup quarterbacks and still made the playoffs in the stacked AFC in the toughest division in football called the AFC North. And yet I'm supposed to believe that of all the issues in Dallas and I listen, McCarthy has his limitations. I've been critical of him. His inability to use analytics bothers me. And Dak Prescott, yeah, not the greatest playoff resume, but neither did Tony Romo, and Jason Garrett wasn't great before McCarthy, and Wade Phillips didn't live up to expectations. Parcells left before it started to the culture that he was potentially building started to rise in Dallas. Dave Campo failure, Chan Gailey failure. It's one constant variable in this whole Dallas Cowboys equation. And it's Jerry Jones. The idea that McCarthy comes off his best coaching year in a decade. Dak comes off the best year of his career easily. And they have to prove it to Jerry Jones. A case can be made that it's Jerry Jones who has to prove it to Dallas Cowboys fans. That, of course, will never happen because Jerry's the owner. And because he's the owner, he can hire himself to be the general manager. And it shows with his football decisions over the last 28 years. No NFC title game appearances. Come close on many occasions. 2014, the Dez Bryant catch-no-catch game. 07, 7 years before that, with losing to the 6-seed Giants. Only the first number 1 seed in the history of the divisional round to lose to a 6-seed in their first playoff game. You think about this year where the Cowboys were a good roster, not a great one, but Dak and McCarthy and CeeDee Lamb were able to elevate the roster, elevate that franchise into the 2 seed in the NFC. And the 3 most important members to a successful season are on prove-it deals. That shows you about Jerry Jones and his priorities and his inability to look in the mirror. So am I shocked by Tyler Dunn's report that Mike McCarthy's fed up? I'm shocked it didn't come out earlier than this. So, yeah. McCarthy, I've been critical of you, man, and I don't love some of your decisions. But, yeah, you got my backing on this one, buddy. Big time. I think you got the backing of a lot of people. Check the comments. Patrick. Mike McCarthy's in the hot seat, and he knows that a slow start could doom his season as it did with Wade Phillips in 2010. And, again, I'm not even saying McCarthy should be the hot seat. I called for his job after the playoff game. It's not that Dallas lost to Green Bay. It's the fact they didn't look ready against Green Bay. The game plan was odd. It was flippant. The defense especially, it looked like they didn't belong on the same field as Jordan Love and the Packers. So, again, I think that was a fireable offense. I do. Especially with some real, you had freaking Ben Johnson and Dak Prescott. Holy cannoli, in the words of Klay Thompson. That would have been dangerous for the NFL. So I agree. I absolutely agree McCarthy should have lost his job after that playoff game. But listen, from his perspective, and a McCarthy defender could say, it's the best coaching job he's done in 10 years. Dak's the best year of his career. And they have to prove it to you? So, certainly my case for Dak. The strong case can be made for McCarthy. Patrick says, and by the way, Patrick is a Cowboys fan. 3 12-win seasons compared to 3 8-win seasons with Coach Clapper, Jason Garrett. Actually, Jason Garrett had 4 8-8 seasons, just to correct you there, Patrick. Jerry's egomaniacal tactics haven't changed. Long as he's marketing the team versus winning, it can lead to fed up. Yeah, you don't say. You don't say. Only thing Jerry Jones cares about is Thanksgiving. It's our Super Bowl, beating the Giants, 2-bit bandits, and booking on a A-list country singer to perform. As a lifelong Cowboys fan, nothing surprises me. It's really predictable. It shouldn't surprise you. I don't think it surprises anybody, Patrick. Listen, Dallas is going to be good. I think Dallas is a playoff team. NFC's got some up-and-coming teams. I really like Chicago this year. No reason to think Green Bay will take a step back. Again, I still got to see a little more from Jordan Love, more than just a half season. But assuming he continues that, Green Bay will be in that driver's seat. Potentially, maybe not driver's seat, because I freaking love Detroit going into next year. San Francisco's not going anywhere. The Rams, even though they did lose Aaron Donald, and that might be the barrier between me picking the Rams to win the NFC and not picking them to win the NFC, because I love their roster, love their front office, and obviously Stafford and McVay are excellent. But, I think Dallas absolutely listen, we'll see. They may even win the division, because as much as I like Philadelphia's additions to the defensive side of the ball, I think Vic Fangio has been, maybe I've overrated him a little bit over the years, but he's clearly an upgrade over the carousel of coaches the Eagles tried to run their defense a year ago. So the Eagles defense, they can't really get much worse than they got a year ago. And the Saquon Barkley addition helps, but it isn't as if the Eagles had a running the football problem. As a matter of fact, it's probably the best strength of their team. So Barkley just strengthens a strength. But they downgraded an offensive coordinator, I believe, because Jalen Hurts was in the MVP race before he suffered injuries. They downgraded an offensive coordinator. Their head coach is still a little Darvin Hamish in over his head. And so Dallas, I think, absolutely could win the NFC East. But Green Bay has a better roster and a better coach. And who else? Who'd be a potential wildcard team? Whoever comes in second between the Niners and the Rams, probably the Rams. You're not beating the Rams. Stafford, McVay, you're not beating them. I'm sorry. Chicago. It's dicey. I really like Caleb. I'm hearing some people say, hey, Caleb could go to the Super Bowl. Hey, let's slow down on that. But I do, listen, I think my track record in defending, I shouldn't have that much to defend, honestly, with Caleb Williams, speaks for itself. I think Chicago's upgraded tremendously when it comes to their roster. So, yeah, listen, Dallas could very well win the NFC East, and it won't matter because again, the utter failure over the last, there's been very few exceptions. 07 was an excellent roster that couldn't go in a deep playoff run. They would have probably lost the Patriots anyway, but the Cowboys could have easily gone to a Super Bowl in 07. Certainly a conference championship game. 2014 was a good enough roster, although the defense wasn't great. 16, I think, was a good enough roster because that was the best offensive line by far in football with Dak and Ezekiel Elliott, their rookie years. 2021, I think, was capable enough. I did like some of the pieces on that team. Other than that, that's another 20, I guess at that point, 24 other years of futility when it comes to put together good rosters, not special. And special is what is what wins in this league. So there you go. Patrick, Cole Beasley called it out a few seasons ago. Star players are featured in the playoffs, not the guys who helped along the way. Role players are an afterthought. If there's smoke, it's fire. Jerry has and will always hire coaches he can control. Mike McCarthy is seeing what every head coach has endured, and it's working his patience. Oh, yeah. I think it'd work anybody's patience. But Jason Garrett might be the only exception, but he has ties to the Cowboys. That's part of the issue. The Cowboys are like the Lakers, man. They have a weird obsession with hiring people who once had ties to the franchise. But we will, what do we got next to the docket? Let's see what we have here. What do we have up in here? Oh, yeah, I apologize. Okay. Paul George is a free agent. So it doesn't sound like, based on the reporting coming out of LA, that he's come back to the Clippers. By the way, why the heck should he? Listen, Steve Ballmer's not a bad owner. I respect owners who take big swings and big risk because, as I talked about with the Celtics last week, that's what wins in sports. So kudos. I really like Steve Ballmer. But, I think Ty Lue's the second best coach in basketball, third best coach in basketball at worst. I think he's excellent. But the Harden thing handicaps the Clippers, Kawhi's injury history, and long contract handicaps the Clippers. The fact of the matter is LA extended the wrong guy. Paul George should have been the guy they extended. Instead, they extended Kawhi, and predictably, he's not available again in the playoffs, and Paul George is left to carry the load of a weirdly constructed roster. So I don't think Paul George come back to the LA Clippers. There's plenty of suitors. Philadelphia 76ers. We saw Joel Embiid freaking recruit Paul George on air in Game 4 of the Finals in Dallas. I mean, he's on there. He's like, Embiid's like, we could use some help. And he kind of looks at Paul George like, hey, buddy, you want to come join the ship? I think Philly would be a great fit. I do. I think Philly's going to be really, I don't trust Embiid at all, but I think really, really good next year because they have a ton of cap space to add a star player or maybe superstar potentially. You obviously have the Orlando Magic, who have nothing but cap space. They could add two players potentially to that roster with Paolo Banchero, obviously. I think the Golden State Warriors, my Golden State Warriors, have a really good claim and really good pitch to land Paul George. So based on reporting over the weekend, Klay's not coming back to the Warriors. Like he's not. I've talked extensively going back to November. Maybe before that, I think during the offseason, I floated Klay Thompson trades that if Klay is in Golden State under the right number, I would love to keep him back. Great shooter coming off the bench. Like that'll, but if Klay's there on 3 years, 75 mil, 80 mil, you're not winning anything because you handicap yourself. Well, according to new reports, Klay Thompson is, again, reported this according to Anthony Slater of The Athletic, and he covers the Warriors extensively. Anthony Slater is one of the most, I think he's excellent. And he says that Klay, even if he gets a good offer from the Warriors, might turn it down because he just wants a new, fresh start. To which I say, God bless you. I wish Klay nothing but the best. I'll pull for him wherever he goes. That guy helped us win 4 championships. I will always have love for Klay Thompson, and no player will ever wear number 11 again, unless Klay were to maybe come back to the Warriors someday at the end of his career. So under the, and I was listening to Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo break it down today on Bill Simmons' podcast. Under the whole second apron, structure, salary cap structure with the new CBA, which I hate, by the way, but if the this is interesting. Chris Paul is a big day, Friday, not just because it's my birthday, but a big day for the Warriors on Friday as it relates to Chris Paul. Because they can either trade him or a guy who's, I think it's $28 million cap hit. The Golden State Warriors be put in a position where if they cut him, I think it'll only cost them about I hope I'm getting this number right, $4 million against their cap. So it'll be, you move off Chris Paul, it's a big contract, gone. And Chris Paul's not going to be a Warrior next year, but he's a piece they can kind of see what they can get for. That's why still, if people are like, oh, the Chris Paul, Jordan Poole trade. You moved on from Poole's contract, and you have another piece in Chris Paul you could potentially do something with. If the Golden State Warriors let Klay Thompson walk, all of a sudden, they're not in the second apron. All of a sudden, they have cap space to sign Paul George. And I want you to think about this for Paul George. So he's played for 3 franchises to this point: the Pacers, Thunder, Clippers. Now, I think the Pacers, by and large, have been a pretty well-run operation for a long time. Obviously, Paul got to, I think, 2 Eastern Conference Finals in that span, when he was going against LeBron and the Heatles. That was peak LeBron James, peak athleticism. At one point, the Pacers took the Heat 7 games. Like, that's the type. This is what Paul George is doing 2, 3 years, 4 years into his career. Then it kind of fizzles out. They go through some coaches, and it just kind of falls apart. So he goes to Oklahoma City, gets traded to the Thunder. And we think it's going to be for 1 year. He oddly, after that first year when Westbrook takes 1 trillion shots in a Game 6 loss to the Jazz, re-signs a long-term contract with OKC. Damian Lillard hits the 37-footer over him, waves goodbye to Russ and PG. Russ gets traded to Houston after PG's traded to the LA Clippers. It's like a package deal with Kawhi Leonard. They tried that, blew a 3-1 lead to the Nuggets. It just, now to Paul George's credit, people talk about, oh, the Clippers have been a mess. The 1 year in the Los Angeles Clippers franchise history, led him in the Western Conference Finals for the first time ever. It was not Kawhi Leonard. It was not down the road James Harden. Darn sure wasn't Westbrook. It was Paul George. Only Western Conference Finals appearance in the history of the Los Angeles Clippers. Paul George carried him there. Against the 1-seed Utah Jazz, they went on to lose to the Suns, who got to the finals, obviously, that year. Chris Paul and Devin Booker, that team. Since then, he's dealt with Harden stuff, Kawhi in the lineup, out of the lineup, injuries, load management. It's been kind of weird. Ty Lue's been trying to figure it out. They made the Harden trade again, which I said then, and it is obvious now, very obvious now, was an abomination of a deal with the Philadelphia 76ers. You just set Philly up with the potential chance to be the favorites out east, or at least the co-favorites with Boston if they add the right player with Embiid and Maxey. So just weird, poorly run Clippers stuff that we're kind of accustomed to. When I look at Golden State, the history of winning, but let's look at the here and now. Is Steph Curry 36 going on 37? Yep, just averaged 26 points per game. What was a down year for Steph? Still averaged 26 points per game, and oh, by the way, won Clutch Player of the Year and led the NBA in 3-pointers made. So Steph's still pretty good, if you haven't heard, contrary to what Gilbert Arenas might think. Draymond Green in the games that the Golden State Warriors, when he wasn't suspended, that's going to be the thing for Draymond Green. Don't get suspended. The Warriors, if you look at their win percentage, when Draymond was in the lineup and didn't get thrown out of a game, would have been good enough to be the 5 seed out west. You know who the 5 seed out west was? The Dallas Mavericks. And where did they go? The NBA Finals. So when Draymond was in the lineup, it's a different team. That's been the case ever since Draymond was inserted in the starting lineup in place of an injured David Lee by Steve Kerr in 2014. His importance to the Warriors cannot be understated. Criticism of Draymond over the years has been, some of it's unfair, some of it's been fair. The one thing that is completely unfair is that the Warriors should just move off him because he's so freaking valuable, even now to the Warriors. You have Jonathan Kuminga, who last season, I think if I'm getting the number right, I think it was 25 or so 20-point games last season. In year 3, he's my age. He's 21, 22 years of age. He's going into year 4 with an opportunity. He had one game where he almost went perfect from the field. Like Jonathan Kuminga, 7th pick of the draft. Dude is coming. So you have Steph, Draymond, Kuminga, and you have Steve Kerr. You have a great coach now with Ty Lue in LA, but the contract stuff is falling through. Paul George's post-Indiana career has dealt with a lot of chaos and a lot of dysfunction. Golden State is stable, and contrary to what we were just talking about with the Cowboys and the Lakers, frankly, a basketball-first operation led by the most even-keel superstar maybe in the history of the NBA, with the exception of Tim Duncan, Steph Curry. He gets to space the floor. Steph is there. Like Paul George, he may be cool with Kawhi, and that's great, but in the back of his mind, there's no doubt in my mind, Paul George has been like, in the last 5 years, Kawhi's available. It'd be nice if he's good to go for the playoffs. You don't have to worry about that with Steph. He's reliable. He's there. He's verbal. Draymond Green is as well. Space the floor, great shooter. Paul George, well, he's dealt with injuries. Paul George last year played the most games he's played in the last 5 years that he played with the Clippers a season ago. So the fit works. And you combine that with the Steph Curry, who's still great, a Draymond Green who's infinitely valuable, a great coaching Kerr, and potentially, and again, we'll see what they're able to do. Again, the only way to me Kuminga should be included in a trade is if it's for like a Kevin Durant or somebody, like a pie in the sky type of deal. That kid is going to be special, like really special. I've said that from the jump. Since he was drafted, that kid's going to be a multi-time All-Star. So Philly works. It does. But Embiid's a little Kawhi-esque in that, can you really trust him to be healthy when you absolutely need him most? The answer to that has been overwhelmingly no. Magic work too, but they're really young. And by the time Paul George, or by the time that the Magic, Paolo Banchero, who I love, by the way, by the time the Magic get to that emotional and physical maturity to potentially go deep in the Eastern Conference, Paul George will be out of his prime. Golden State, his prime matches up with Steph's prime, which matches up with Draymond's prime. They're going for it for the next 2 years, and that's going to be it, in all likelihood. And we'll see what they do. We'll see how long Steph's prime lasts, and I think it'll be longer than most expect. Golden State, I think, makes the most sense for Paul George, particularly under the NBA CBA, if the Warriors let Klay walk, and assuming they're going to move off Chris Paul. So, and by the way, Kevon Looney's coming back as well, which was nice news to see today. I think the Paul George thing works in Golden State. I really, really do. I think it makes a lot of sense. Let's see. Patrick, who do you think won the trade between Chicago and OKC? Caruso to OKC, Giddey to Chicago. Story has it Giddey didn't want to be a six-man off the bench. Yes, I did see that. And I really like it for Oklahoma City. I've always liked Caruso. He's a great 3-and-D guard type of player. I think the Lakers were crazy to move off him 3 years ago. He was really good in Chicago. And again, could hit the three, is an excellent defender, good hustle guy. So a good sort of veteran. It's weird to think of Alex Caruso as a veteran. He looks like a veteran in the face. And he looks like a Ernie Johnson's son, for crying out loud. Shout out to the great Ernie Johnson. But yeah, he's kind of the veteran presence that organization, that team kind of needs to sort of take that next step with all the young superstar talent that they have there. So I think OKC won the trade. For Chicago, listen. We know the situation off the court with Giddey and how that transpired. And Giddey talked about that really kind of impact his mental health and whatnot. So I think that maybe he could settle down Chicago, although Oklahoma City, this is putting it mildly, is a much milder environment than this great city of Chicago, Illinois. It's a different culture there. It's the case with any big market. Chicago, New York, LA, Miami, Dallas, like that's just how it is. So could they can maybe use them as a trade piece potentially? I'm not sure what Chicago's plan is for this offseason because they're kind of stuck in the mud. It looks like all indications are they're going to move off Zach LaVine, and then it's DeMar DeRozan and Vucevic, okay, but so I don't hate it for Chicago either, but I do think OKC won the trade. Patrick, Warriors would be a solid fit for PG. Let CP3 go back. You could not stop taking shots at the Clippers, although I just did, so whatever. Warriors would be a solid fit with PG. Let CP3 go back to Flipperland and help open the 1 million bathroom stadium with no blueprint for the future. That I do agree with. I'm not really sure what the Clippers' plan is. Listen, this isn't the Donald Sterling Clippers. I think Steve Ballmer's we know he's a great businessman, obviously with Microsoft. But listen, I don't fault Steve Ballmer for making the decision that he made to go after Kawhi and to go after Paul George. Because again, it's where were the Clippers going to go prior to those guys? So you could say Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but he had a Patrick Beverley, Danilo Gallinari. The Clippers obviously were not a peak free agent destination prior to that. So I don't fault him for making those big decisions, those big swings, but that's just how sports works. But yeah, I would be very, very excited if Paul George ends up as a Golden State Warrior. I would be very excited. And all reports say that they're interested. And hopefully the interest is mutual and they can make something happen. But really, in order for that to happen, you got to make sure you work the CP3 contract correctly by this Friday, trade him or cut him, and you probably have to let Klay walk. Like unless you get Klay on a massive discount, you kind of have to let him walk in order to be able to bring in Paul George. And then at that point, for me as a Warriors fan, then what do you do with Andrew Wiggins? Because he's on a contract that's paying him almost $30 million a year. He hasn't lived up to it, obviously, since the championship in 2022. So can he really get much for him? Like, that's the question. Does Wiggins move into the six-man role? It's an odd situation. And so that, to me, is going to be the really fascinating thing as a Warriors fan to be watching. Because Kevon Looney they've opted into the last year of his contract to pay him $8 million. So Kevon Looney's back. Great to have him back with the Golden State Warriors. But it's the other pieces that I'm really interested with, particularly Andrew Wiggins, because I think Clay is pretty much gone. Let's move to the WNBA. It is, I have to say something. It is so nice and so refreshing to be talking about a Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese story that has 100% to do with basketball. It is great. It is awesome because I'm a fan of both of these players. I'm a fan of what both are doing for the WNBA, what both did in college, and the different roles that they're playing for the growth of the league, because we know Caitlin Clark is the driving force. Like, that goes without saying. The ticket sales, the ratings and whatnot speak for themselves. But as I've talked about, the idea that Caitlin's the only people bringing viewership to the WNBA is not true. We haven't gotten to this point the ratings, and we may get them during the show. I'm not sure, but we have not gotten the ratings yet for the Sky and Fever game yesterday, Chicago Sky, Indiana Fever game yesterday on Sunday yet. But the last time these two played, I think it was watched by like 2.25 million people last weekend, a week or so ago. So, that's, I imagine it'll be even more so then. But let's talk about the game. So, again, it's so nice to be talking about basketball, not culture wars fueled by disingenuous bad actors. But the Chicago Sky won yesterday, 88-87. Caitlin Clark played fine. She had 17 points. She had a career-high 13 assists and 6 rebounds, near triple-double. But Angel Reese was the superstar of this basketball game. She had 25-16 in this game on 8 for 12 shooting from the field. And, listen, for those that have there's so many doofuses on the internet. It is really unbelievable. That or somebody, Angel's jealous of the attention of Caitlin, and she's really not that good. She wants to. Is Angel Reese as good as Caitlin Clark and have the future Caitlin Clark has? I don't think so. I think we saw what they did in college. Angel Reese was a tremendous player at LSU. Caitlin Clark was a transformative player at Iowa. And I think by and large, we'll show you their stats in just a second. The comparison is actually closer, of a back and forth as one might maybe believe going into it for the Rookie of the Year discussion. But the idea, Angel Reese, she ain't that good, she's overrated. That's nonsense. That's BS, and it's not true. Angel Reese. 2 interesting stats I want to bring up real quick. Angel Reese has 8 straight, I believe the number's 8 straight double-doubles. That is the WNBA record for consecutive double-doubles by a rookie. She is also, this to me is just as impressive to me, she is the first rookie since Asia Wilson in 2018, best player in the league, by the way, for those of you that don't know, to have a 25.15 rebound game as a rookie. So Angel Reese is pretty dang good. But the Rookie of the Year discussion is, because I've seen debate on, particularly on First Take today, so they were talking about it. I think LaChina Robinson, who does a great job, was talking about how Angel Reese, she's been the best rookie, not Caitlin Clark. And I think you can make a credible case for both. We could show you their stats, all stats provided by our friends at StatMuse, all graphics provided by our friends, provided by my friend, my man, Alfred Parsard Jr. They're closer than you think. Caitlin averages more points, 16-13. Angel averages over double the rebounds. That's to be expected. 11 rebounds to 5 to Caitlin, Angel to Caitlin. In terms of assists, Caitlin triples Angel, 6-2. Shockingly, this is interesting to me. Angel beats Caitlin in steals, 1.7 to 1.5. Equally as shocking is the fact that Caitlin, who's obviously a much smaller player in stature, way exceeds Angel Reese in terms of blocks per game. 0.9 blocks per game for Caitlin, only 0.1 blocks per game for Angel. But field goal percentage, Angel beats Caitlin as well, 40% to, or 40.6 to 39.9. So only 0.7% difference between those two. So you got three stats in the Caitlin column and 3 stats in the Angel column. Again, if there was a vote today, I would vote Caitlin Clark a Rookie of the Year for the simple fact that you talk about blocks per game, that should go in Angel's favor. Instead, it goes in Caitlin's favor. And field goal percentage, given that Caitlin is far more of a perimeter player than Angel is, Angel only shoots 0.7% better from the field than Caitlin Clark. Like you would think it'd be like 2, 3, 4, 5%. It's only 0.7. So I would give it to Caitlin. In large part, too, because the Chicago Sky did make the playoffs a year ago. The Fever did not even come close to making the playoffs a year ago. So the importance and the value to their teams, I think, is markedly different. If you watched the Indiana Fever game yesterday and throughout the season, that everything runs through Caitlin. Everything runs through Caitlin Clark. Whether, if she gets doubled, here comes Aaliyah Boston. She can get to the bucket. She's really good out of the pick and roll. The Fever have some nice young pieces. Still need to add some more as time goes on. Katie Lou Samuelson's a good three-point shooter. It's some nice pieces, but almost all of the Fever's offense is based off of Caitlin Clark doubles. It just is. And so, whereas Chicago Sky, they have Kennedy Carter, Camila Cardoso's made a good impact. Angel Reese has been the second best rookie in the WNBA this season. And so, I would give it to Caitlin, but a credible case can be made that if you look at the 3 games thus far that these two have played in the WNBA against one another, the 3 Caitlin games and the 3 Angel games, of those 6, best game of those 3 games, probably Angel Reese. 25 points and 16 boards against the Chicago Sky. Against the Indiana Fever. And so I think, listen, we'll see what my opinion is at season's end, because the regular season ends for the WNBA in September, mid to late September. The Fever played their last game on September 19th, so like right at the beginning of football season. And so maybe I'll have a different opinion by then. Maybe the data will change, the stats will change, the overall impact could change, although I don't necessarily see that one changing as much because of Caitlin's value to the Fever. But Angel's on her tail. Like, it's not a unanimous, it's not a runaway for Caitlin Clark to be Rookie of the Year. I would vote for her because the context for the field goal percentage, for the blocks per game, things of that nature. But it's well within the realm of possibility that Angel Reese, who's second in the WNBA in rebounds. Caitlin is 4th in, I think, 3-pointers made per game and 4th in terms of assists per game. But Angel Reese, second as a rookie in the WNBA in rebounds per game. That's something. So I'd vote Caitlin, but it's close. It is very close. Patrick, Skytown Barbie is her. I enjoy watching Angel Reese and how she can impact both sides of the floor. Double machine and likely winning Rookie of the Year honor. She very well could. I think it is clearly a 2-woman race in that regard. Cameron Brink was putting up a decent, I shouldn't say a decent, she was playing well, especially in terms of blocks per game. Are you kidding me? Great rim protector. But she tore ACL, unfortunately, is gone for the season, which sucks for her and for the LA Sparks. And so, best wishes to Cameron Brink, and hope she heals up and gets back to the court for the 2025 season. But this is a 2-woman race. It's Caitlin and it's Angel, and which is great because I can make a case that Caitlin's certainly the most popular player in the WNBA right now. And at the 2 spot, is it Angel or is it A'ja Wilson? Because A'ja Wilson is the best player in women's basketball. But Angel, because of the popularity she accumulated in college at LSU, because of her impact as a rookie, I don't know. I mean, it's a reasonable discussion. Again, if you held the vote today, I mean, honestly, I can't tell you who would win. I would vote Caitlin, but it's not close to a unanimous vote. If time goes on and Caitlin sort of maintains her play and Angel exceeds and elevates her game, Angel Reese probably is your 2024 WNBA Rookie of the Year, but we'll see how it plays out. Oh, Barry Grant Jr. shows up in the comments. It's one of the this is a bit much, Barry. It's one of the greatest days in Lakers history for me. Let's slow down. I don't know if Barry, if you caught my opening rant, I'll clip it up, put it on YouTube for you and God and everybody to see, but I think JJ is a freaking brilliant basketball mind and will do a great job. I watched most of his press conference. I thought he was phenomenal on stage handling me. He was great. The Lakers front office is not allowed him to be because of poor personnel decisions, because of, I think, a power struggle and power control that Jeannie Buss likes to exercise. Certainly Rob Pelinka likes to exercise. The Rambuses like to exercise. LeBron James not going to be in the NBA in 2 years. Then what? Because it isn't as if, again, the Lakers have won 50-win season in 12 years. They've been a championship contender. I mean, a true top of the line title contender with LeBron. I would make the case once. Well, they got to the conference finals a year ago and they got swept. Well, it was a close sweep. Yeah, so was the Nets against the Celtics in the first round 2 years ago. So sweep's a sweep. I mean, the Mavericks darn near swept the Timberwolves this year. So there you have it. Last topic before we get out of here, before I go on to watch my Vols become national champions in the sport of baseball. Let's go. Real quick, I want to talk about Kenny Atkinson, hired by the Cavs today. So Kenny Atkinson, who was an assistant coach with my Warriors the last 3 seasons, got a championship in 2022. He was hired this morning to be the new head coach of the beloved, on this show at least, not quite, Cleveland Cavaliers, to be their new head man. This is his second head coaching job in his career. He coached in Brooklyn from 2016 until he was fired in the midst of the 2020 season, which to me is one of the oddest things I've ever seen, where the Nets, yeah, they weren't that good, but Kyrie dealt with injuries. This is the first year Kyrie and Katie were there, by the way. There's no question that those two pulled the strings in getting him fired. And what I think has always been my thing with Kenny Atkinson, and why I've always been impressed with him over the years, and why I love that he was on Steve Kerr's coaching staff the last 3 seasons, is his ability to develop talent is really underrated. So if you look at what he did with the Brooklyn Nets, D'Angelo Russell's career was, I don't want to say in jeopardy, but it certainly wasn't in a great place. He was traded from the Lakers to the Nets after only 2 years with the franchise. Yeah, he was 2017-18. He was D'Lo's first year in Brooklyn. He built D'Angelo Russell up to being a pretty good player, to the point where he was a valuable trade asset with the Golden State Warriors, who moved D'Angelo Russell to Minnesota to get Andrew Wiggins. So again, D'Angelo Russell it went from kind of an immature, bad locker room guy, and Kenny Atkinson developed him into a good NBA player, starting caliber NBA player. You think about guys like Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert was under Kenny Atkinson, Jared Allen was under Kenny Atkinson. Like that Brooklyn Nets team in 2019, gave what I believe to be the best Philadelphia 76ers team that Embiid's had, where it was Embiid, Ben Simmons before he got scared to shoot at the free throw line, he was scared to go to the basket, Jimmy Butler, the new Lakers head coach, JJ Redick. Like, that was a really, really good. I think that Sixers team should have won the East that year. But of course, Kawhi hit the shot in Game 7. But that Nets team played him close in that first round series. And you think about Kenny Atkinson, who took over a Brooklyn Nets situation in 2016, that was probably the least attractive job in basketball, because of the fact they had no assets. Their top 2 picks, or their picks in 2016 and 2017, both went to the Boston Celtics, who ended up drafting the duo that won him a championship last week. So it was a tough situation, no assets because of the awful Pierce Garnett trade, and he got them back into relevance to the point. I mean, if without Kenny Atkinson, who knows? Does Katie and Kyrie go there? Probably not. So, I think he's a good developmental coach. Is he going to coach Cleveland to championship? Exactly. Of course not. It's Cleveland. It took the greatest player in the history of the NBA to get you a championship, and it took maybe the greatest player at his position in NFL history before that, the late, great Jim Brown, to win you your last championship before that. So, Cleveland's one of those cities, man. You need absolute generational greatness, like all time. We've never seen anything like them before to win championships. So Cleveland, don't get your hopes up too much. I don't know what this means for Donovan Mitchell. There's been mixed reporting coming out of Cleveland about he may want to stay, sign an extension, go elsewhere, but they have some good pieces. Darius Garland probably gets moved. I think there's some friction between him and the front office. Jared Allen's still a great shot blocker. Evan Mobley gets better. I would have liked to have seen Evan Mobley develop his offensive game more than he has. But listen, I think Cleveland's a good spot for Kenny Atkinson, and an opportunity for him to sort of continue to rebuild his, not reputation, but the Brooklyn thing didn't end the greatest. I think most of that was because of Katie and Kyrie and Sean Marks in particular pulling the strings behind the scenes. But I think he'll do a good job in Cleveland. I mean, I didn't love them firing Bickerstaff, but apparently there were some locker room issues there. So again, I'm not sure what happened there, but I think Atkinson's a really good hire. I do. I think the Cavs made the right decision here. I hate to say that, to give kudos and props to the city of Cleveland, Ohio, which again, I want to reemphasize this, because people in Cleveland may be mad at me. Oh, you hate us. I don't hate you. I don't hate anybody. I think the people of the city of Cleveland are as nice as people as I think they're really good people. But it is what bothers me about Cleveland. See, they're not like in your face and just jerks like Philadelphia, like sometimes New York can be. Boston certainly is. That's not Cleveland. There's just a sense of over-optimism that really crosses the line into absolute delusion when it comes to, in particular, the Browns, but the Cavs over the years, and it makes me sick. And yes, I'm salty about the 16 finals. Of course I am. Yeah, darn right I am. You kidding me? I mean, the more I learned from my sources in Golden State over the years, it sounds like KD was going to be a Warrior regardless of how that finals ended. So that just makes it even worse. The fact that if the Golden State Warriors do not blow that 3-1 lead in 2016, they won 4 championships in a row. But I think Cleveland has very nice people there. I just don't like your sense of delusion. Listen, all fan bases are delusional to a degree, but Cleveland they just take it to a different level, man. They just go above and beyond with it. Anywho's it. I got to watch Tennessee win a national championship tonight. So with that said, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to go catch Carving Up Live on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. And be sure to like, share, comment, and of course, please take 2 seconds out of your day and hit that big red subscribe button down there. It helps the channel grow exponentially, and we are on the road again to get to 5,000 subscribers as soon as we can. We just passed 1,000 not that long ago. 5K is the next goal. So if you have subscribed, thank you so much. Please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody you know about Carving Up Live, except for your sleeping cat. That I don't. Neela was in a good mood today. He has been for a while. I think he didn't love the weather over the weekend. That bothered him, especially this fur coat. He didn't love it, which I don't blame him. It's hot for me. I can't imagine for him. So tell everybody you know about Carving Up Live. If you haven't subscribed, hey, just takes a couple seconds. Hit the big red subscribe button down there, and boom, you're part of the Carving It Up family. Also, well, you know what? Let me go and put this out first real quick. Just as importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere you get your favorite podcasts, be it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, any and everywhere you get your favorite podcasts. You can find us at the Grid Network, where we dare to be different. And a very important announcement. So I'm doing the show at 6. As of right now, it looks to be 6. So I may move it back to 5, depending on the situation with what I'm about to mention, because the Grid Network is going to go live at 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday night for night 1 of the 2024 WNBA draft. The first round, the NBA, I'm not quite sure why, but they've broken it up into 2 days. The first round on Wednesday, the second round on Thursday. Second round will be very interesting because of the Bronny James stuff. Myself, the great Mike Guido, the host of the Bicoastal Baseball Podcast, we're going to both be there. It's our fourth. It's crazy to believe our fourth straight year doing the NBA draft live reaction show. We're going to be doing it on the Grid. Wednesday night, first round of reactions will be Wednesday night, 7:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be there for it. Chime in the comment section. Me and Mike are going to be reacting to every single first round draft pick. So definitely stay tuned in for that. We had a lot of fun the last 3 years, and no doubt it'll be the case once again this year. So definitely stay tuned for that. And again, we'll be back for night 2. Does night 2 start? I think night 2 also starts at 8 o'clock Eastern. So probably start the show at 7:45 at that point as well. This is going to be a really big week for the NBA because you got the draft this week. You got free agents. We've already had some deals. Scotty Barnes signed a rookie extension. Malik Monk is staying with the Sacramento Kings. You got the Caruso trade. Like there's some stuff bubbling in the NBA over the last week or so, even prior to the end of the finals. That's going to be very, very fun to cover. And we're going to be with you for all of it, to react to all of it, and to give takes on all of it live on Carving It Up. So definitely Carving It Up, 6 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. NBA Draft Live Reaction Show on the Grid Network YouTube channel and Twitter account, 7:45 Eastern. Be sure to tune into that for myself, Mike Guido, and whoever else will be a part of that show. So we will see you then. Please be sure to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please, please, please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. It doesn't matter where you lean, right, left, center. It's an issue that impacts every single one of us as Americans each and every day. And no matter what people on one side of the aisle tries to say, oh, it's not a problem, or the other side of the aisle, oh, there's only one solution to the problem. Both are BS. Both are false arguments. This is a huge problem that has a number of nuanced solutions. We got to do what we got to do as citizens to hold these people accountable and make sure that they keep us safe from this epidemic going on for far too long. All right. Stanley Cup Finals Game 7. Not even a hockey fan, but you darn right I'm tuning in to see Edmonton make history. I'm very excited to see my Tennessee Volunteers become national champions. Let's go. I'll see you then. We'll do a Vol celebration show on Wednesday. It's going to be very fun. We'll see you then. Stay safe out there, y'all. God bless y'all. Peace out. Come on, Vols, get it done, baby. Let's go. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.